Today marks 42 years since one of the darkest chapters in Sri Lanka's post-independence history, Black July. On the 23rd of July 1983, a tragedy unfolded that left an indelible scar on the nation. A country that had lived for centuries in peace and coexistence was torn apart by politically driven violence and division. What happened was not an isolated incident. It was a result of decades of decisions made by political leaders whose narrow ambitions fractured a once unified society. Their power was secured, their families entrenched in politics, but the nation paid the price, dragged into 3 decades of darkness. On that day, innocent citizens, our own brothers and sisters, were brutally attacked. Homes were destroyed, lives were shattered, communities were broken. Yet, amid the horror, there were heroes. Ordinary people who rose above ethnic and religious divides to protect their neighbors. People who chose humanity over hatred. Their courage reminds us of what true nationhood and brotherhood looks like. The lesson is clear. Division breeds destruction, but compassion saves lives.
This is Primetime News on TV1 for the Newsfirst, where the people come first. I'm Martin Satyanesan.
And I'm Rochelle Thamodharan. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for tonight.
Supreme Court rules that emergency regulations imposed by acting President Ranil Wickremesinghe violated fundamental rights. Rajitha seeks court protection against arrest. Ex-LTTE member arrested in Kiribathgoda may be linked to an organised crime network. TID launches full investigation. Environment Ministry seeks CID assistance to investigate suspected organised elephant killings. Opposition leader claims economic centres to be given to private sector. Minister Vasantha alleges Sajit is wasting time.
තියෙන හැඟීම තමයි මේ විශේෂිත ආර්ථික මධ්‍යස්ථාන සහ මුලින්ම පෞද්ගලික සමාගමකට ලබා දෙනවා කියන කාරණාව.
මොකද මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ කාලය අරන් සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මහත්මයා විපක්ෂ නායකවරයා හැටියට Tamante හිතන ඔක්කොම බොරු ටික කියනවා. අඩුම තරමේ එතුමාට පුළුවන් මේ ප්‍රශ්න අහන්න කලින් කැබිනට් පේපර් එකේ මෙහෙම තියෙනවද කියලා බලන්න.
No decision to restrict vehicle imports. Central Bank Governor confirms. P. Padman Surasena named next Chief Justice. Case file.
On to those stories in detail. The Supreme Court of Sri Lanka ruled that the emergency regulations imposed across the country on July 17, 2022 under the Public Security Ordinance by then acting President Ranil Wickremesinghe violated fundamental human rights.
The 3-judge bench declared that the emergency regulations issued under Section 2 of the Public Security Ordinance were arbitrary and without legal force. The court further ordered that the regulations be rendered null and void.
In addition to invalidating the regulations, the court ordered the government to pay legal costs to the petitioners.
Fundamental rights petitions filed by prominent civil society representatives were taken up by the Supreme Court, challenging the emergency regulations imposed on the 17th of July 2022 by then acting President Ranil Wickremesinghe under Section 2 of the Public Security Ordinance. The petitions were filed by Dr. Pakisoti Saranamuthu on behalf of the Centre for Policy Alternatives, former Human Rights Commissioner Ambika Satkunanathan and Liberal Youth Movement represented by That Prabha Pandita and Attorney-at-Law Atam Lebbeasat and Sandun Tudugala. The 3-member bench comprising Chief Justice Murthu Fernando, Justices Yasantha Kodagoda and Arjuna Obesekara delivered a majority ruling today. Chief Justice Murthu Fernando and Justice Kodagoda issued a joint judgment, while Justice Obesekara delivered a separate opinion. Justice Kodagoda, delivering the majority decision, stated that acting President Wickremesinghe had failed to present any justification to the court for the declaration of emergency regulations. He emphasized that there was no legal basis under Section 2 of the Public Security Ordinance for such a declaration at the time. During the political unrest and mass protest in 2022 against then-President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the Supreme Court noted that Rajapaksa resigned and left the country. In response to the prevailing situation, Acting President Ranil Wickremesinghe imposed emergency regulations across the country on the 17th of July under Section 2 of the Public Security Ordinance. The court observed that these emergency regulations led to violations of fundamental human rights guaranteed by the Constitution and were arbitrary in nature. Fundamental rights petitions were filed before the Supreme Court requesting that the regulations be declared null and void. Justice Yasantha Kodagoda, delivering the judgment, stated that both parties presented extensive arguments during the hearing. He emphasized that the court focused on whether the acting president had properly invoked Section 2 of the Public Security Ordinance to justify the emergency regulations. The Supreme Court rejected preliminary objection raised by the Attorney General, who argued that the court lacked jurisdiction to hear the petitions. The bench reaffirmed its responsibility to protect the fundamental rights of citizens and uphold the rule of law. After a detailed review of the submissions, Justice Kodagoda concluded that the emergency regulations were arbitrary. He stated that the regulations imposed by Acting President Wickremesinghe violated the fundamental rights enshrined in Article 12 of the Constitution. The court ordered that the emergency regulations be declared void and directed the government to pay legal costs to the petitioners. Justice Arjuna Obesekara, a member of the three-judge Supreme Court bench, delivered his separate opinion in the case concerning the emergency regulations imposed by Acting President Ranil Wickremesinghe in July 2022. Justice Obesekara stated that the emergency declaration did not constitute a violation of fundamental human rights. He emphasized that the regulations were issued in response to the prevailing national situation and did not result in any infringement of constitutional rights or arbitrary actions. Based on this reasoning, Justice Obesekara concluded that all petitions filed in this context should be dismissed. Representing the petitioners were attorneys Pulasti Hewamana, Dr. Gihan Kulatunga, Tishya Veragoda and President's Counsel Suren Fernando. Appearing on behalf of the Attorney General were Senior State Counsel Shavindra Wickrama, Sampath Bandara and Deputy Solicitor General Rajiva Gunatilaka.
Case file.
Speaker Dr. Jagat Vikramaratne informed Parliament of the procedural steps to remove Inspector General of Police Deshabandhu Tennakone from office. This follows a proposal signed by 115 members of Parliament, which led to the appointment of a special committee to investigate allegations of misconduct. The committee has unanimously concluded that Tennakone is guilty of the charges. The committee report was tabled in Parliament on Tuesday.
According to the report, IGP TMW Deshabandhu Tennakone has been found guilty. Therefore, under Section 17 of the Removal of Public Officers Procedure Act No. 5 of 2002, a resolution for his removal will be entered into the Parliamentary Order Book. As per Standing Order 27, 5 full days must pass after the resolution is entered into the order book before it can be included in the parliamentary order paper. The date for debate will be decided by the Parliamentary Business Committee. If a majority of members of Parliament, including those absent, vote in favour of the resolution, the President will be informed immediately under Section 18 of the same Act to proceed with the removal of the IGP from office.
Durin iwat kirima sandha garu janadipatiwara denuwat karnu lebe.
Case file.
Former Minister Rajitha Senaratne filed a revision petition before the Colombo High Court seeking an order to prevent his arrest by the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption. The petition was filed following the rejection of a similar request by the Colombo Magistrates Court. High Court Judge Indrika Kalingavansha scheduled the petition to be taken up for consideration on the 30th of this month. The investigation pertains to a project involving sand excavation at the Kirinda Fisheries Harbour, which was allegedly awarded to a Korean company, resulting in a financial loss exceeding 20 million rupees to the government.
Sri Lankan President Andrukumara Dissanayake has appointed a special presidential investigation committee to probe allegations of fraud, corruption and irregularities within Sri Lankan Airlines Limited and Airport and Aviation Services Sri Lanka Private Limited. The committee met with the President at the Presidential Secretariat, where he engaged in a detailed discussion with its members.
The letters of appointment for the Presidential Special Investigation Committee tasked with probing fraud, corruption and irregularities within Sri Lankan Airlines, Airport and Aviation Services and related entities were formally presented at the Presidential Secretariat by Presidential Secretary Dr. Nantika Sanath Kumar Nayaka to the convener and the members of the committee. K.N.M. Kumarasinghe, Additional Secretary to the President, has been appointed as the Secretary and the convener of the committee. Other members of the committee include Retired Auditor General H.M. Gamini Vijayasinghe, Retired Additional Director General of Customs Jnanasiri Senanayake, Chairman of the Sri Lanka Savings Bank Dushyanta Basnayake, Attorney at Law Chaminda Tukorala, Additional Director General of the Department of Public Enterprises N.H.K. Vijayaratna. The committee is expected to focus on multiple incidents of misconduct and corruption that occurred within these institutions during the period from 2010 to 2025. Its mandate includes identifying parties responsible for questionable decisions and irregularities revealed in the J.C. Valimuna Committee report and the Auditor General's Special Investigation Report, recommending corrective actions and providing guidance to prevent similar occurrences in the future.
Police have initiated investigations under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act against suspects arrested in the Setikulam area of Vavuniya, who were found in possession of 86 hand grenades and 321 rounds of T-56 ammunition. The inquiry was prompted by revelations that the suspects had received funds from external parties into their bank accounts on multiple occasions.
In a security operation conducted by police in Kiribati on Monday, the 21st of July, a former LTTE member was arrested while travelling in a three-wheeler. The suspect was found in possession of a T-56 assault rifle and 36 rounds of ammunition. He had reportedly arrived from Kompanavidya in a motor vehicle which broke down due to a mechanical fault, prompting him to continue his journey in a three-wheeler. The suspect has been identified as Kalia Perumal Ramesh, a resident of Tuttuake, Neriyakulam. Based on information obtained during his interrogation, police arrested another individual, 22-year-old Anton Suendran Vikram, also known as Deva, from Neriyakulam. A search of his residence in Setikulam, Vavuniya led to the discovery of 86 live hand grenades and 321 rounds of T-56 ammunition buried in the premises. Additional items recovered included 3 5.5mm live rounds, 5,600 tablets of the narcotic pregabalin and 10 grams of crystal methamphetamine, also known as ice. Analysis of Deva's mobile phone revealed that a woman had repeatedly deposited funds into his bank account. Police noted that in April alone, deposits of 150,000 rupees, 190,000 rupees, 150,000 rupees and 1.197 million rupees were made. During questioning, Deva disclosed that the bag containing grenades had been handed to him 3 months earlier by a resident of Gandhinagar, Neriyakulam. Authorities suspect this individual may attempt to flee the country via sea routes and have alerted the Navy and airport security. Another suspect, a 24-year-old resident of Dutuai, Neriyakulam, was also arrested for allegedly aiding and abetting the operation. Among the suspects arrested in Setikulam is an individual with an outstanding warrant issued by the courts. Mobile phones recovered from the suspects have been handed over to the Terrorism Investigation Division for further analysis. Investigations are now being conducted under the Prevention of Terrorism Act. Police have also uncovered that the suspects operated a WhatsApp group named KD Killer Kings, through which they coordinated activities related to drug trafficking, explosives and arms smuggling. Authorities are currently investigating whether the suspects have links to any terrorist organizations. The Police Narcotics Bureau has joined the investigation to verify the suspects' involvement in drug trafficking. Meanwhile, 2 individuals who were reportedly in the motor vehicle that transported the Kiribati suspect from Kompanavidya have also been taken into custody by police.
Ongoing investigations into corruption, misconduct and violations of fundamental rights continue to unfold alongside inquiries into organized criminal networks. Amid these developments, a disturbing new reality is emerging. Sri Lanka's elephants are being targeted.
A series of deliberate and sustained shootings have claimed the lives of multiple wild elephants, raising serious concerns about an organized campaign of violence. Minister of Environment Dr. Dhammika Pattabandi has stated that there is credible evidence suggesting these killings are not isolated incidents but part of a calculated conspiracy. This report sheds light on that growing concern.
The recent death of Bhatia, an elephant who suffered for weeks from gunshot wounds, has reignited national concern over the rising number of elephant killings in Sri Lanka. Just as the country mourned Bhatia's passing, reports emerged of 3 more elephant carcasses discovered in the Digampatha Reserve near Dambulla and Sigiriya. Another elephant was confirmed shot and killed the same day. Authorities are now receiving increasing reports of elephants suffering from gunshot injuries. Among them are well-known elephants like Raju roaming near the Kandalama Wever, Yasa near Kala Wever, and others roaming in the Sipukulama and Kudagalem Bindunu Wever areas in Anuradhapura. In response, the Ministry of Environment has sought the assistance of the Criminal Investigation Department to probe these incidents.
මේවයේ ස්වභාවය දිහා බැලුවම අපට සාධාරණ සැකයක් මතුවලා තියෙනවා මේ.
Looking at the nature of these incidents, we have reasonable suspicion that there may be an organized operation behind these killings. We had managed to reduce monthly elephant deaths to around 20 to 25. In previous years, that number was as high as 30 to 35 per month. However, during the recent budget period, especially when the Environment Ministry's expenditure head was being debated, we observed a sudden spike in elephant shootings. That trend has continued in recent weeks. As a result, both the Ministry and the Department of Wildlife Conservation have requested CID assistance to investigate further. By the 10th of this month, wildlife veterinarians were treating 9 elephants with gunshot wounds. By the 15th, that number had risen to 13. As of 3 p.m. yesterday, it had reached 21. This is a rapid and alarming increase.
ඊයේ සවස් 3 වෙනකොට ඒක 21 දක්වා වැඩි වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ නිසා ශීඝ්‍ර වැඩිවීමක් තියෙනවා.
Why is there suspicion of an organized operation behind the killings?
අලින්ට වෙඩි තැබීම තබුණු ආකාරය සම්බන්ධයෙන් ගත්තොත් ඒකෙත් කිසියම් සමානත්වයක් තියෙනවා.
There is a disturbing pattern in how these elephants are being shot. Most have been targeted below the knee or in front of the limbs. Videos of these injured elephants struggling to walk have been widely circulated on social media, creating emotional distress and public outrage. We observed that these videos are being used to manipulate public sentiment. Just yesterday, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa raised a question in Parliament under Standing Order 27-2 regarding elephant killings. Coincidentally, several new elephant deaths were reported the same day. One of the most notable was the killing of a tusker in Galgamuwa, which had occurred days earlier but only went viral on social media yesterday. Similarly, 3 decomposed elephant carcasses were found in the Digampatha Reserve. One of them had been reported as far back as February this year. The sudden resurfacing of these cases and their coordinated spread on social media suggest a possible organized effort behind the scenes.
ඒක අපිට ඒ සිදුවුණු විදිය සම්බන්ධයෙන් අපිට තියෙනවා කිසියම් සංවිධානාත්මක බවක් ඒ තුල නිරීක්ෂණය වෙනවා.
September 27th, 2019. In the lead up to the presidential election, the carcasses of 7 elephants suspected to have died from poisoning were discovered in the areas of Habarana, Digampatha and Hirivadunna. The presence of baby elephants among the dead made the incident even more heartbreaking. A total of 407 elephant deaths were recorded in 2019, the highest number of elephant fatalities recorded in a single year. In 2020 and 2021, the numbers dropped to 328 and 375 respectively. However, during the 2022 period of the Aragalaya, elephant deaths began to rise again. 2 more elephant carcasses were found buried in a farmland in Urukmankulam in Thirappane, hidden in pits. The total number of elephant deaths reported in 2022 reached 433. For your attention.
These were the views expressed at a media briefing held today by Lawyers for Truth and Justice organization.
රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ වගේ හිටපු ජනාධිපතිවරුන්ට විරුද්ධව
cases related to infringement of fundamental rights against former presidents, including Ranil Wickremesinghe, have been examined and rulings have been issued. Similarly, cases have been filed and decided against Mahinda Rajapaksa and Gotabaya Rajapaksa, and now Ranil Wickremesinghe is also facing legal action based on allegations of fundamental rights violations. Against this backdrop, weapons have been found in various locations. During the local government election period, there were hardly one or two shooting incidents reported anywhere. This suggests a clear, planned strategy is now underway. There have been numerous shootings, assassinations and disappearances. Incidents that happen suddenly, then fade away, only to resurface again in waves. On another note, look at the increasing elephant killings. In the past, elephants were killed and they did get captured before. But now, there are planned shootings of elephants. I have seen evidence of this, and even the Environment Minister has acknowledged it. The elephant named Bhatia had not only been injured by a trap gun, several rounds had been shot at its head and back. Who is behind all this? If we analyze this calmly, it becomes clear that a highly organized group is orchestrating these actions. Just yesterday, a man was caught with 86 grenades. How is this happening? What is the narrative being propped up here? That national security has become a serious issue and that the government has failed. We clearly say that all these events are part of a larger script. It is evident to us that this is a planned operation. Never forget that the Rajapaksas and Ranil Wickremesinghe have governed this country for many years, sometimes for 30 to 40 years. Which parties and leaders nurtured and protected organized crime groups and criminal leaders? This must not be forgotten.
එයාලගේ ඇසුරේද ඒ පාතාල නායක පෝෂණය වුණේ කියලා අමතක කරන්න එපා.
News First with the people.
The Constitutional Council has unanimously approved the nomination of Justice Preeti Padman Surasena for the position of Chief Justice. His name was submitted to the Council by President Anurakumara Dissanayake. Justice Surasena, one of the most senior judges on the Supreme Court bench, has previously served as a member of the Judicial Service Commission. The current Chief Justice, Justice Murdo Fernando, is scheduled to retire on the 27th of July. Moving along. President's Counsel Nizam Karyapur made a special statement in Parliament regarding the ongoing investigations into the 2019 Easter Sunday attacks.
The first time information was revealed regarding the undisclosed aspects of the Easter Sunday attacks since this government came into power was through the B report filed under case number B35882/24 at the Colombo Fort Magistrates Court. This report was submitted on the 24th of November. The initial reference in this report was to the expose by Azad Maulana aired on Channel 4. Following that, Father Cyril Gamini provided information based on a WhatsApp message he had received. That message was reportedly based on evidence presented by Azad Maulana to the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva. Based on this evidence, two suspects were identified by the Criminal Investigation Department. The Department of Immigration and Emigration had issued orders to prevent these two individuals from leaving the country. These individuals were none other than Sivanesature Chandrakanthan alias Pillan and Suresh Saleh. However, to this day, the CID has not taken statements from them or arrested them as suspects in this case. The report also mentions the failed attempt to portray a woman named Sarah as deceased. But the most significant revelation is that two police officers stationed in the Vaunathu area were brutally murdered and their weapons were stolen. The report clearly states that these weapons were later used by Zahran's group. Deputy Speaker, the CID has submitted a strong report on this matter. I don't want to say too much, but let me quote directly. According to the investigation, the officer who was in command of the Sri Lanka Army's 3rd Military Intelligence Unit at the time had taken action. I won't name the colonel. The officer who served as the head of the intelligence unit in Batticaloa, a major, or rather captain. If retired Major General Aruna Jayasekara, recipient of the Veera Vikrama Vibhushana, were here today, he might know more about this. The report states that an informant under the Sri Lanka Army's Intelligence Directorate provided information. A copy of the file containing this information was examined and it was revealed that in 2015, this intelligence had been shared with the 3rd Military Intelligence Unit. The informant's name is mentioned. This informant had provided critical information about the activities of Zahran Hashim Hashim and other Islamic extremists. However, the commanding officer and other intelligence officers of that unit failed to act on this information. If they had, the Easter attacks could have been prevented. This is according to the CID. The CID confirms that the informant's statement is credible. Furthermore, orders were issued to the Department of Immigration and Immigration to flag the passports of 5 individuals to prevent them from fleeing the country. This was in April 2025, yet not a single one of these intelligence officers has been arrested or produced before court. In the Vaunathu case, who went to translate a Tamil statement, was the one arrested and presented in court, just an innocent sergeant. This is like the infamous Kakile verdict. Meanwhile, the officer who commanded the Eastern Province SF headquarters at the time is now in this parliament. When questioned about this on the 9th of January, or perhaps the 7th of January, Ananda Vijaypala made a statement. This is the B35882/24 report. This report had been hidden all this time. We finally got access to it. It says investigations are ongoing. So far, according to the report, statements have been recorded from 12 civilian witnesses, 7 military personnel, 26 police officers and 3 prison officers. A total of 48 individuals. But the Justice Minister is not here today. Otherwise, I would have asked. Not a single one of these 48 statements is included in this report. Who is stopping this? Deputy Speaker, who is preventing the military intelligence officers in the Eastern Province from being questioned? Who is shielding the commanding officers? Who is obstructing justice in court?
අධිකරණ ඉදිරියේ සාධාරණ යුක්ති ඉෂ්ට කර ගැනීම සඳහා ගෙනීම වළක්වන්නේ කවුද?
Ilange Tamil Artsakatchi MP S. Sridharan also expressed his views regarding the investigations into the Easter Sunday attacks in Parliament today.
பிள்ளையான் என்கிற சிவனேசதுரை சந்திரகாந்தன் மீது கைது செய்து அடைத்து வச்சிருக்கிறார்கள்.
Sivanesathurai Chandrakanthan, also known as Pilyan, is currently in custody. He must be held accountable and punished for any wrongdoings he has committed. We do not oppose that. However, it is concerning that questioning is being carried out selectively using the Easter Sunday attacks as a basis. The Easter Sunday attacks took place on the 21st of April 2019. Just days later, on the 27th of April of that same month, former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa had shared several remarks with Reuters news service. In that interview, he revealed concerns about the destruction that could befall the country through Islamic extremism. Today, Pilyan remains in custody. He was merely a tool in this incident. Why has Gotabaya Rajapaksa not yet been questioned? I am tabling the transcript of Gotabaya Rajapaksa's interview with Reuters conducted on the 27th of April 2019.
அந்த பிரதியையும் கௌரவ உறுப்பினர்களே நான் சபாபுடத்துக்கு சமர்ப்பிக்கிறேன்.
During today's parliamentary session, Minister Vasantha Samarasinghe accused the opposition leader of wasting parliament's time without proper study or understanding of the matters at hand. The minister made this remark in response to a statement made by the opposition leader who alleged that there were plans to hand over the economic centres to a private company.
මම කැමතියි දැනගන්න විශේෂිත ආර්ථික මධ්‍යස්ථාන ඔය සක්‍රීය මධ්‍යස්ථාන මොනවද?
I would specially like to know which specific economic centres are considered as active, what their total asset value is, and I request that you table a report on this to the House. Once that is submitted, I would also like clarity on the Cabinet proposal to establish a limited liability company to manage these special economic centres, what the government's true intention behind this move is, and what are the reasons and justifications that led to this decision. However, there is growing concern that these special economic centres are being handed over entirely to private companies.
ලබා දෙනවා කියන කාරණාව
මම හිතනවා අපේ රටේ විපක්ෂ නායකවරයාගේ වගකීම කියන කාරණය පිළිබඳව
I believe we need to pay closer attention to the opposition leader's responsibilities. Sajith Premadasa, as the opposition leader, is taking up this parliament's time making completely false claims. As the opposition leader, he is aware that a cabinet paper has already been approved. At the very least, before raising such a question, he should have checked whether the contents he refers to are actually included in that cabinet paper. If he is not even responsible to do that, then we must question whether he truly understands the responsibilities of the position he holds. An opposition is meant to guide the government, highlight its errors and offer constructive criticism. But here we see someone who shows no willingness to verify facts. Can you lie in this manner? He quotes from written material but speaks on true facts. If the opposition leader had taken time to review the cabinet paper, he wouldn't have had to ask a single one of those questions today. Instead, without even reading it, he comes here and makes false claims. This cabinet paper clearly states that this will be a fully state-owned company.
මේක සම්පූර්ණ රාජ්‍ය සමාගමක් කියන එක කැබිනට් පත්‍රිකාවේ තියෙනවා.
US President Donald Trump announced a new 19% tariff rate for goods from the Philippines after what he called a beautiful visit by Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to the White House and said US goods would pay zero tariffs.
US President Donald Trump said he has reached a trade agreement with Philippine leader Ferdinand Marcos Jr. following a meeting yesterday at the White House that will see the US slightly drop its tariff rate for the Philippines, said the two Pacific allies who will celebrate 80 years of diplomatic relations next year would also work together militarily but gave no.
Japan and the United States say they have reached an agreement on trade and tariffs after months of negotiations. US President Donald Trump announced the deal today, calling it massive for both the countries.
The United States and Japan struck a deal to lower the tariffs President Donald Trump threatened to impose on goods from its Asian ally that included a pledge by Japan to invest $550 billion in the United States. The agreement, including a 15% tariff on all imported Japanese goods such as automobiles, rice and other agricultural products, down from a proposed 25%, is the most significant of the string of trade deals the White House has reached ahead of an approaching August 1st deadline for higher levies to kick in. Speaking to reporters shortly after the announcement, President Trump claimed that US has signed the largest trade deal in history with Japan.
I just signed the largest trade deal in history. I think maybe the largest deal in history with Japan. And that was done with Japan. They had their top people here, and we worked on it long and hard, and it's a great deal for everybody. I always say it has to be great for everybody. It's a great deal. A lot different from the deals in the past, I can tell you that. But we're doing really well as a country. We're strong. We have a lot of money flowing in.
Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba hailed the deal as the lowest figure among countries that have a trade surplus with the US. He expressed confidence that the deal will help protect Japan's national interests, foster job creation alongside the United States, and help both countries play key roles on the world stage. The agreement comes after Japan's chief tariff negotiator, Akazawa Ryose, arrived in Washington for an 8th round of talks this week.
Impact on Japan's economy.
The Nikkei rallied 2.4% to 40,731.86, with the Tokyo Stock Exchange's Transport Equipment Index surging 8.4%. Toyota Motors soared 10.9%. Bank shares also gained, sending the TSE's banking index up 3.7%. The reduced economic uncertainty helped to clear the path for the Bank of Japan to resume interest rate hikes, with its next policy meeting set for Wednesday and Thursday of next week.
Impact on US stock market.
US stock index futures rose last evening after President Donald Trump announced a trade deal with Japan, while focus was also squarely on upcoming earnings from Alphabet and Tesla. The S&P 500 rose less than 0.1% to a record high 6,309.59 point close, while the Nasdaq Composite fell 0.4% to 20,892.69 points, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.4% to 44,502.19 points. Wall Street indexes marked a mixed close on Tuesday as some strong earnings were offset by a pullback in major technology stocks. Two-way trade between the two countries totaled nearly $230 billion in 2024, with Japan running a trade surplus of nearly $70 billion. Japan is the fifth largest U.S. trading partner in goods, according to the U.S. Census Bureau data.
The governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka responded to questions on the U.S. tariffs on the island nation and the impact on the economy.
it's too early because we are also in the process of negotiation, and it's a changing situation. Every day we see some countries they will announce, some countries they postpone. So that's something we have to prepare for that. It's a short-term impact. So any impact we have to manage that in the short term and then prepare how to mitigate that risk going forward on a long-term basis. That's one thing. Central Bank is not involved. There's a team headed by the Secretary Minister of Finance is a team. I am as a governor only a member of the technical team. I'm only one member. I don't think it's appropriate for me to, as a member of the team, to comment of the negotiation process. It's only end of the negotiation. Minister of Finance, government will announce the outcome.
Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe on Wednesday said that the Central Bank of Sri Lanka has not focused on restricting vehicle imports. He said that the vehicle market will remain open, adding that the government also has not decided to take any change or rather make any change to the decision.
පසුගිය දිනවල යම්කිසි වාර්තා කිහිපයක් පළ වෙලා තිබ්බා වාහනායනය සීමා කරන්න රජය සහ මහා බැංකුවෙන් අවධානය යොමු වෙලා තියෙනවා කියලා මේක යම්කිසි
මහා බැංකුවෙන් කිසිම අවධානයක් යොමු වෙලා නැහැ.
The central bank has not taken any steps to impose restrictions on vehicle imports. The market remains open and there is no intention from the government to change that either. As far as I know, there is no such move. In fact, I believe the relevant minister has stated that no such changes will be made. From the central bank's perspective, there is a macroprudential concern regarding the stability of the financial system and the ability of borrowers to repay loans. Therefore, some level of alignment has been made in this context.
Governor, with the recent announcement from the central bank to reduce the vehicle purchasing loan rates, with this it increases the upfront payment burden. So my question is, what is the practicality of this move, especially for the commoners seeking financial assistance to buy a vehicle?
So here the loan to value ratio is an instrument. That is what we call macroprudential instrument, which is to basically have a sustainable level of borrowing by individuals, whatever the loan they take. For example, any loan product, usually the housing loans, several loans, there are certain level of loan to value ratios as a macroprudential policy. Motor vehicles, because we had this ban on imports for last 4 or 5 years, we still didn't want to change the existing the ratios that we had earlier because there's no import coming. As a result, we didn't have need to revise that. But now, especially with the new Central Bank Act, this has been basically recognized as a macroprudential instrument. And for that, now we basically trying to use that instrument properly for macroprudential purposes, which is to have a sustainable amount of borrowing by the borrower, especially the people who are borrowing for vehicles. I'm sure 70% loan and 30% equity is a reasonable rate for any borrower for them to be able to service their loans, especially when they buy a motor vehicle, because here when it comes to motor vehicle, there's a risk that value of motor vehicles can come down over a period of time. Brand new vehicle maybe lower the values. If you get 90%, if that comes down to 80% of the value, there's a risk for the financial institution that there's no incentive for them to continue to service this loan because value is lower than what the loan they've taken. That is a macroprudential instrument.
The Monetary Policy Board decided to maintain the overnight policy rate or the OPR at the current level of 7.75%. The board arrived at this decision after carefully considering both domestic and global developments. The board is of the view that the current monetary policy stance will help steer inflation towards the target of 5% in the period ahead while supporting growth. Inflation is projected to turn positive this quarter and steadily increase towards the target of 5% thereafter. Core inflation will continue to gradually accelerate in the coming months, reflecting the steady recovery in the country's demand conditions. The economy recorded a firm growth of 4.8% in the first quarter of 2025. Leading economic indicators suggest that this growth momentum will continue in the near term. At a press conference in Colombo, questions were raised about the IMF program.
With regards to the IMF program, what more needs to be done? And from Sri Lanka's point of view, with global uncertainty, what is the central bank's stance on this?
No, I think there's no central bank stance. Again, if you look at the fourth review published document, it clearly says what are the quantitative targets, what are the structural reforms benchmarks. Those are very clearly publicly available. I think what we would like to see a proper implementation of all the commitments within next 6 to 12 months period, and it's a new commitments. It will be coming in the fifth review. So our fourth review documents clearly contains what are the commitments of our side of the reforms. One, quantitative targets, fiscal, monetary and external, plus structural benchmarks in terms of other reforms. Those are the things we would like to see happening in next 6 months or 1 year, and move in the same direction and complete the program going forward.
Today, hope flowed into Gambadda as the foundation was laid for a water project that will quench long-standing thirst. Gambadda's latest initiative brings a purified water system to Digamandala Primary School in Panama and the Abe Singapura village in Ampara, fulfilling a deeply felt need of the community.
The Digamandala Primary School in Panama, Ampara is a school where 122 children pursue their education each day. For a long time, their greatest challenge had been a lack of clean drinking water. The school is located in the northern part of Panama in the village of Abe Singapura, a community that too has suffered under the burden of the same water crisis. Around 600 families live here, earning a living through fishing, farming and daily wage labor, struggling each day, yet holding on to hope for a better tomorrow. This project is made possible through the generous support of Devoshi Kure and her family, who resides in the United States, and Bernadine De Silva from Kuhuala, who provided further assistance for the project in loving memory of her parents. Today, the Gambadda team laid the foundation stone to begin constructing the water purification system. Technical support for the project is being provided by the Sri Lanka Navy. Gracing this occasion were many distinguished guests, including the Chief Sanghanayaka of the Vellassa and Digamadulla regions, Venerable Panama Chandraratna Thera, Lahugala Divisional Secretary N. Navanitha Raja, Lahugala Zonal Deputy Director of Education Asoka Patirana, along with government officials, and Amarashri Bandara, Senior News Manager at Newsfirst, among many other invited guests. When we launch a project of this nature, the school and village come together for a common cause, that is to obtain clean water. This community consists of families who are Sinhalese, Tamil and maybe even Muslim. All of them unite because a water crisis is one we all face. There are certain issues we can resolve ourselves. Then there are common issues that can be resolved through the intervention of prominent state officials, such as those who are present here today. In this endeavor, we strive to utilize the support of anyone in society who is able to contribute. That is how broad our movement is. Alongside this project, Gambadda, in collaboration with Google Benevity, also carried out a special initiative today by distributing nutritional packs to expectant mothers.
The 60th Independence Day celebrations of the Republic of Maldives was held in Colombo.
The High Commission of the Republic of Maldives in Colombo hosted a celebration to commemorate the country's 60 years of independence, a moment that also marks 60 years of diplomatic relations between the Maldives and Sri Lanka. The ceremony was attended by the High Commissioner of Maldives to Sri Lanka, Masood Ahmad, Minister of Trade, Commerce, Food Security and Cooperative Development, Vasantha Samarasinghe, along with other senior officials from the Sri Lankan government and representatives of the Maldivian community in Sri Lanka.
The Maldives story of independence roots back to December 16, 1887, when it became a protectorate under Sultan Muhammad Muizzuddin II through a treaty with the British governor of Ceylon at the time. Under this agreement, we preserved our internal autonomy and the British assumed responsibility for conducting our foreign relations. That chapter concluded on July 26, 1965, when Prime Minister Ibrahim Nasir, who would later become the president, took a bold step to reclaim full sovereignty. The agreement was signed in this beautiful city, Colombo, between the British High Commissioner, His Excellency Michael Walker, and the Prime Minister Ibrahim Nasir for the government of the Republic of Maldives. Following the agreement with Britain, which granted full independence, Sri Lanka was the first country to recognize independent Maldives. That recognition laid the foundation for a diplomatic relationship built on trust, shared values, culture, and mutual respect. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, today we live in a time when misinformation and selectively framed narratives can distort public perception, even where long-standing friendships are concerned. We must recognize that much of this scrutiny is not based on reality, but rather on misconceptions driven by external influences. By promoting trust, transparency, and mutual respect, we can nurture a relationship that is inclusive, resilient, and enduring. This is how we should honor our past, and this is how we should secure our future.
Establishment of formal diplomatic relation between our two nations is 1965, which in fact coincident with the birth of the independent Republic of Maldives, cemented the civilization link that the two people shared for countries. We are proud to have played an important role in the process of Maldives obtaining independence by providing the venues for signing the Declaration of Independence. An important milestone that we celebrate today with pride. It is a pleasure coincidence that today we are celebrate the momentous occasions of 60 years of establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries. Both nations have identified the potential for future enhancing bilateral trade and economic ties. As island nation of the Indian Oceans, Sri Lanka and Maldives are deeply committed towards environmental protections, oceans health, and mitigating the effect of climate changes. We continue to work close in regional and multilateral fora to formulate sustainable solutions to address the challenges of climate change and its global impact.
The DMASL Digital Summit Sri Lanka 2025 is set to kick off tomorrow and conclude on Friday the 25th of July, bringing some of South Asia's sharpest minds to our island. In the lead up to the highly anticipated summit, C-suite pre-event gathering was held in Colombo this evening.
A high-profile prelude to the DMASL Digital Summit Sri Lanka 2025 unfolded at the Lotus Tower in Colombo as top executives and global thought leaders gathered for an exclusive pre-event evening. The event marked the official launch of the summit, celebrated with spectacular fireworks display and the Lotus Tower's stem lighting up in DMASL's signature colours. Set to begin tomorrow, the 24th of July, the Digital Summit will be held under the theme Rise of Digital Asia, bringing together South Asia's leading minds, industry giants and digital innovators for 2 days of dialogue and collaboration, shaping the region's digital future.
From that, we bring to a close this edition of Primetime News on TV1.
Thank you for watching.
Good night.